Welcome to Resilience Gone Wild. I am here with my fabulous producer, Kai, and we are lapping it up because we're just sort of...
How many intro recordings have we recorded, and you always start them?
I say, what do I say?
No, but yeah, welcome everybody. It's really exciting to be here. I mean, just... We're about to get into, well, talk about our guest real quick, and then I'll tell you what
so
my
excited.
experience.
It's this fabulous woman, Rion Nakaya, and she's, in 15 years ago, I think, started this amazing motherly network of support for what, and that came from the kids should see this. When she and her husband would see something and they're like, the kid should see this.
Yeah.
They had one kid at the time, so it was the kid should see this. And it's just brilliant. And we had just such a fun conversation about, what it means to be a curator, what it means to introduce your children to curiosity and to share that with them and to always be in conversation. And the world just opens up. It's so much bigger and so much brighter and so much more fun when your mind is open and you're in awe and curious.
Yeah, and I think for me especially with a 2-year-old, well, soon to be 2-year-old, screen time can be a dividing issue amongst families and how they raise their children. And it's, for my wife and I, we definitely take the as least amount of screen time as possible. And I believe our pediatrician says, around 2 years is when you can begin to introduce educational screen time. With the exception of FaceTime, I guess the studies show that FaceTime it shouldn't be unlimited, but it is something that is beneficial for kids that age. And so, yeah, I was tuned in, although my wife had to work. And so I had Miles with me, and you guys talked for about an hour and 10 minutes. And the amount of toddler afternoon that was happening during that recording session, including the playing of a piano, we actually managed to get the water table set up. There was a diaper change. This was all happening while I'm holding a laptop, making sure you guys were all set. But I just really appreciate her energy, what she brings to the table, and this idea that it's not about restricting screen time, because I think with anything in life, when you restrict, that's when you're not doing yourself any favors. So it's this idea of what is shared screen time, and how as a family, how can you sit down and enjoy over 7,000 videos that she has personally curated, and is saying that these are incredible videos, and really highlighting the videos out there that don't have a lot of views, that are from really important organizations, is the other piece of this I thought was really interesting. So I was so grateful for all the information, and I feel like I have this entire library. I don't even have to go to YouTube with Miles, right? I can just go to this website and it's all curated. So thekidshouldseethis.com. Yeah.
And it's so broad. You'll hear that she and I talk about, the kid meal in the restaurant. They have these in so many restaurants. You've got this narrow group of mac and cheese, French fries, just, kids should have plain, boring food. And that's what we do with screen time, right? We put on a few things that we know of, but she opens the world up to, she said Ella Fitzgerald scatting was
I love that.
her. And she's like, my kid should see this, because then she heard her kid scatting. He was little.
Yeah.
This world needs to be bigger than the children's menu.
Totally.
And sharing it needs to be an aha moment for multi-generations, and then go out and enjoy life, go out and experience life based on what you've shared on the screen, as opposed to just using it as a, stay put.
Yeah. And I love the kid menu metaphor, because I was laughing a little bit because I'm actually stoked when Miles doesn't eat his mac and cheese, because then I get to eat the mac and cheese. On our way home last night.
You know that.
Yeah. And on our way home last night, kept talking about he wanted cheese quesadilla, which is just, a great quick dinner now that I was saying we're in the middle of a kitchen renovation. So something you can microwave quickly. That's actually pretty yummy. Got home, made it for him. He didn't want it. I was stoked because now I have a cheese quesadilla.
And there's that boundary we're not, and it's actually a really important point. There's this boundary that we always want what's on the children's menu, right? Because it's comfort food. And there's this that's for kids. And she breaks that model, that boundary, that strictness that says there's things for kids and there's things for adults. Yeah. And that's gone. So we're sharing this and we're all inspired and we're all hearing different things. And the reality is if you hear Disney or Pixar talk about their films, there's something for everyone in it.
Yeah.
The kids don't get all the same jokes as the parents. The parents don't get all the same jokes as the kids. But there's something for everyone, and then you can share and chat about it.
Absolutely. And then I think you're just starting that conversation at such a young age about what is screen time, what is healthy screen time. There's more out there than the AI generated ad fueled nonsense that kind of like honestly probably gives us anxiety. And there really
no
is
ads in the kids should see this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just really, it gave me a lot of hope, honestly, coming off of, because I know we're going to be going into that world. And and I think the one thing that really stuck out to me is she said, we're the oldest kids, right? So like, stop. We're kids ourselves. We're the oldest ones. So really exciting.
So just to remind everyone that we recorded this with Rion because this is part 2 of Mother's Day and Mother Trees, and happy Mother's Day to anybody who's listening right before Mother's Day. And the whole idea is that mother trees in the forest, if you've listened to last week's episode, which is excellent, is all about that mothers quietly and people broadly, who we could use the word mother as a verb, who mother from afar and bring joy and nutrition and so much goodness to care for others from afar quietly. Certainly not only mothers. And this is all in the realm of what we're talking about today. Yeah.
So it's all, the metaphors have been so awesome, and it's just, the conversation is great. So, should we read a review and get to the interview?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Do you have any idea who Crazy Shell Lady is?
No, I don't. But I love her, whoever it is.
I love this podcast. I'm learning so many fascinating facts about creatures and nature and finding connections within myself. Ditto. Each podcast is presented in a poetic way and leaves me feeling inspired, hopeful, and in a better frame of mind. 5 stars, by the way.
Shell Lady.
But we are getting close to the end of being able to read reviews. So as a reminder, everybody, please, if you're listening, just stop right now.
It's such a short ask. Yeah.
Scroll maybe a little bit and then just give us a quick little review, star rating. Really appreciate it. Goes a long way in getting this podcast into the ears of people who are out there looking for this kind of messaging. And it's the best way to share this podcast organically. So do us a solid. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Should we get to the interview? All right. Enjoy Rion, everybody.
Welcome, Rion. I'm so excited that you're here. And I have to do my usual, yay, I'm so excited that you're here, because that's how I always that's my energy, and that's how I start. So welcome. I am so thrilled that you are here to follow up on my Mother's Day episode about mother trees and nurturing quietly in the background as a force for good, seeing what people need before they even know what they need, and what the forest needs before the forest even knows what they need. So you were the first person that came to mind, and I'm so excited that you said yes and that we're here together. So welcome, and please introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are and the incredible product, service, experience, resource, tool, everything that you want to, I don't know what you actually call it. It's just so big and so beautiful that you've created, and how you got here and how it came about.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for all of those kind and flattering words. So my name is Rion Nakaya, and I was a designer for interactive projects for 2 decades, and really loved that what I was doing. And then when I became a mom, I found that I was still going to the internet a lot for answers to my kids' questions and, answers to my questions. And really, I've always used that ecosystem, for a long time. It's a way to connect to our communities and information. And, certainly it's, has its problems, but I think that there's a lot of good there. And so,
are you talking specifically about social media? Is that kind of what you're hinting at?
Social media, and, I think that there's a lot of challenges with just access to information that's factual. I think that algorithms tend to push people into silos that are hard to escape, and all sorts of things like that. But when I started this, I call The Kid Should See This a online video library, a digital collection of all the different educational videos that my family and that I have found to be interesting, engaging, educational stuff that can start conversations and be fun for the entire family to watch. Most of them are usually made for adults. There's a lot of made for kids stuff on there that adults enjoy, or that I remember enjoying, a lot of throwback stuff.
Like the Disney movies and the Pixar movies, right?
Yeah.
Are made for kids? Are they made for adults? Like all that underlying
Exactly.
that adults get and kids might not, or vice versa. Like
Exactly.
we need to share media much more and not define it, right?
Absolutely. And I think that it's really important to watch together. Co-viewing, gives you a shared vocabulary. It gives you things to talk about. Things can come up later and what your kids are referring to. And it's just fun. It's cuddle time. There's all sorts of great reasons to do co-viewing when we have, the ability and the privilege to do it. It's fantastic. And so, the videos on TKSST, I've really selected them. They might be for adults, but, the title, "The Kid Should See This," was really kind of my little mantra, or my goal for when my oldest kid was, right around 3. And there would be something really cool that I thought, the kid should see this. He should see this. We should show this to kids.
Hearing yourself saying that, the kid should see this, right? Like,
exactly. So, I call it, we all call it TKSST now. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it really is kind of the driving force of let's show kids more of what's out there. Let's not silo them into, kids' entertainment.
Think of it like what's coming up for me is like Happy Meals, at McDonald's or something, which is not my thing, but I know that they exist. And, it reminds me, I've had so many conversations with people where I go to a restaurant and the kids are eating, or the kids' meals, right? And they are less expensive typically, so that's a different issue. But often, it's like, just let's let the kids eat what's on the kids' menu, which is like, no matter what restaurant you're at, it's French fries, chicken fingers, and macaroni and cheese, right? And, if we do that with kids with any sort of media, they're seeing so little and stuff that's so dumbed down. And it's just so much healthier. I love that you're like, we think of books that we open kids' minds with, right? But why should video be a narrower set of offerings?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think some of it is, for me, it's kind of a generational perspective. I grew up when, we had mostly only Sesame Street, and then I was watching a lot of grown-up shows, appropriately grown-up shows with my family. There might be stuff on PBS. I remember, a Jacques Cousteau documentary, or, Jane Goodall was in the news and the magazines, National Geographic, and, only having an encyclopedia set that you might be going through for, finding all the details, no internet, and to kind of distract you. And so there was a lot of quiet time just kind of pouring through stuff, or running outside and being with your friends and adventuring. And so a lot of my decision making kind of comes from that straddling of like information and diving into things and wanting to learn, what people are doing and how things are made and all the different perspectives that there are out there, and how people are telling those stories. And then also kind of tying that to making sure that in this digital space that the videos are kind of, that they're conduits to getting off the computer, going outside, getting hands-on with things, trying different things out. And
so that you make such, I'm sure this is what you talk about since 2011 when you created this, that the question of, does creating more video resource and screen resource keep kids inside staring at screens, or inspire them and family to get outside? And I imagine that's a big part of the constant complex question.
Yeah, well, it's constantly shifting, and it's different for every family. My feeling is that video and social media video, it's now built into the culture. There's no escaping it in a lot of ways. I think that, if parents don't want that, they're setting that boundary and they're having to stick to it. And, I know a lot of families, especially when your kids are younger, it's a heck of a lot easier to be able to have those guardrails up and to, I know a lot of families, including us when our kids were little, they're teenagers now. Although we still play video games with them. But, if we were playing video games, if we were watching TV, it was a very small part of our day or our weekend. And, we were with them. We were playing with them. It was something communal. And so, I thought that was a really great way to approach it. As far as, introducing video, it's in some ways, it's not different than the conversation we were having around television, 30, 40 years ago. It depends on what you're watching, and it depends on how you interact with it and how much you interact with it. And so all the videos on TKSST, they're videos that they either show wonder, it might be something a little random from, or something a little viral that, is not kind of a structured educational thing, but is really fun and conversation starting. Or it might be something from the Natural History Museum in New York, or, the Tate in London, like talking about history or art or science, or, the New Jersey Orchestra, explaining how the orchestra works. There's so many, really fascinating kind of information boundary pushing things that we can be watching and sharing that are, I would say, exceptions to maybe what you would want to avoid generally when you start introducing media.
I love it. There's so many things that just came up for me, and I don't know if you heard me like making notes and scribbling and stuff. But some of the things that are popping up are around trust and attention span. And, in this world, at least I listen to a lot of conversation about the divide in our country, and not just a half and half, but like divides within groups and all that. And, vaccines come to mind. I was just listening to a video about measles and a podcast about measles and vaccines, and, trust of your source is so critically important, and people want to trust. It's a human behavior that we want to trust, and it's hard to break someone away from trust. But once it's broken, there's the marble jar, there's all these theories on it. But anyway, so if you become the trusted source, and you as a parent want a trusted source, it's a beautiful offering that you've got, because it sounds like there's a consistency of there's pushing the edges. I don't remember what expression you just used, something like pushing the edges, but it's often made for adults, but works for kids, attention starting, but there's nothing, there's a boundary around what you curate that starts more conversations and gets kids thinking and families talking and all that, and gives this amazing sense of trust so that parents know where their kids are, and these control functions of not letting your kids be on certain channels and certain whatever, which is not the era that I raised my kids in. It feels like I'm like so happy you exist, and that the kids, and I think about language a lot, and the word should in the name that comes from just that expression. The kids should see this, right? But the should is so powerful. Because should is related to trust. So I don't know what's coming up for you around this babble that I've just offered you, but something might.
Well, I think that it taps into a lot of what I was thinking about. I think the should is about expanding the world. There's a lot of topics that, maybe people don't think about that kids might be interested in, but, they should be exposed to it, because there's great information there, and kids can take on a lot more than I think we usually, talk about. And I think that, that can sound a little open-ended. And so I want to kind of specify it a little bit, because, I'm not talking about all topics. That's up to all families. But, talking about, for example, how an ecosystem, works, how a food web works, how, how there are so many more animals than we see in your typical, animal book, and different species of each of those animals and where they live, I think that nonfiction children's books have gotten so much better at that in the last 10 years. But, there's still more that we can be doing there. How we can talk about, for example, let me think. I just had a topic that I was thinking. For example, there are a lot of really excellent podcasts that I think are also doing this in the audio world. And, as much as I love video, I actually think that, audio storytelling is one of the most wonderful ways that kids can be taking in information and going on adventures, because, it really just activates the imagination. And so, podcasts like Tumble or Brains On or, a lot of these, different podcasts that take kids into behind the scenes, of places, or, I remember this Australian podcast that, I think
it's so funny. So you've got, just keep in mind that Rion has 8,000 videos that are actually live. 7,000. Okay.
Yeah.
That are live, and that I don't know what the ratio is of the ones that you accept versus the ones that you don't, that you watch, but the tens of thousands of videos that you have watched that you're trying to navigate through in this and coming up with this example. So it's sort of, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's videos about, and podcasts about ethics, and just really simple ones that are contextualized for kids. That's something that maybe wouldn't come up as quickly, as easily, or as early as would be helpful. And so, by watching videos with, maybe they're a animated short of a creator who was, at his animation school, and you can talk about what the story says and what the challenge was and what would I have done? What would you do in that situation? And it can, spark all sorts of conversations.
I'm just saying about the time, in terms of attention span, podcast versus, as a podcaster, podcast versus video. I mean, there are times, and I think that things have changed. I know things have changed dramatically in attention span and our need for constant multi-sensory experience so that we're not getting distracted. But, if you're home and you're looking at a screen, or you're somewhere looking at a screen together versus you're in the car when you can't look at a screen together, right? But you can listen to audio together and talk about it as you're experiencing it and not after it. So, it's an interesting opportunity to think about when audio for kids is a good idea. We're so busy having to fill in, like people don't tend to listen to podcasts or audio when they're not doing something else. Like they have to have multisensory things happening, right? So if somebody listens to a podcast, they're ironing or they're cooking or they're playing or whatever it is, or they're driving. Yeah. And luckily that's, the thinking fast and slow model. You can drive and clean and iron while paying attention to the audio. And versus video, you need to be all in with multi-senses and not doing something else at the same time or you miss it. So I'm very happy to hear that children's podcast is appealing to you.
Absolutely.
And I actually didn't know about those because that's sort of my next entree into children, and which is why I'm so excited to be talking to you. But anyway, so do you have any thoughts on attention span in that? Like, are the videos gotten shorter and the audio, like, has the content had to shrink over time, or has it grown, like, lengthwise? Well, do people speed everything up? Like, what do you?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I'm sure that people jump through videos every once in a while. I don't usually focus on that part, but what I do when I first started, YouTube was about 5 years old. So there wasn't the deluge of everything that's out there. And the trends on video creation was very different. I have a video from back then that was a guy talking about a species of armadillo that he'd found in his front yard. And he talked about it and he was showing the armadillo. And it was just, like a home video that they put on YouTube, and it was fun. But I found it to be perfect for the site. The first video that I put on the site was Ella Fitzgerald singing, scat singing.
Scat, I know. I heard you being interviewed about that. Tell the story, please. It's so.
Oh, well, so, when my kid was young and he was asking about things, I was always looking stuff up on YouTube. And I remembered, I think, something from Sesame Street from when I was little about scat singing. And so I was like looking up on YouTube, young 5-year-old YouTube that didn't have as much. And I ran into this incredible video of Ella Fitzgerald scat singing. I think it's 1969 on stage. She's sweating. She's laughing. She's working it. She's totally improvising everything. And it's fantastic. And I really loved it. And I was like, oh, the kid should see this. And so I showed it to him and we watched it together. And, I probably did some scat singing myself or, to play and explain it. But I think it was like later that week, I overheard him in his room, like kind of doing a little bebop-a-doo-wop, dee-ba-da-ba-dee, while he was like playing and doing other things. And I was like, oh, it got to him. It got in there and he liked it and he was reflecting on it somehow. And that was the kind of the point where I was like, oh my God, every kid should be able to see these videos. There's so much out there that just makes our worlds gives it more texture, gives it more interest, makes them stronger. And so that's when I started collecting stuff. And so, usually I try to keep the videos try to get it closer to 2 minutes, more than one, depending, to about 6 or 7 minutes. The trend in the last few years for videos has been to make them much longer, when they are more professional, coming from museums or science communicators, or, there's a lot of real-time stuff, of artists like doing work. And so that could be like up to a half hour. I don't often put those long ones on there, although I'm sure sometimes it would be helpful to just be able to put on a video, leave it. Hour, right? I have to go do this. I totally understand that. But a lot of times I want the information, whatever is being communicated. I think that there is a good rhythm and structure for being able to keep interest, something that's not rapid flash cuts, but then also something, somewhere between a oneer and, just keeping it moving, having visuals that provide a little more information than just what you're hearing. Or a lot of the videos, some of my favorite videos on the site are wordless videos. And, you're just watching somebody. There's one, I think it was from the New York Times, years over a decade ago, of a man who was making a soccer ball out of plastic bags and different refuse that he had found. And he tied it all together and then gave it to local kids, and they went off and played soccer. Or people who are cooking or making something quietly, different Japanese. This is like I have a lot of videos of Japanese craftsmen making different things in different parts of the country. Yes. The detail, the patience, the
voice.
Yeah.
It's so mesmerizing.
Exactly.
The voice just distracts you from the detail.
Right. And that's part of why I like factory videos too, even though that's completely opposite of nature in so many ways.
You know what? It's not like I just watched your factory video about glass making and natural materials go into glass making, right? And you just told me that there's a video of unmaking glass back in the sand, which is, so this is all about nature. Like it's about, what we've learned from nature and how to be in partnership with nature. So go for it. Tell me. Yeah. Say more.
Well, I think that a lot of the factory videos are interesting the same way that I want my kids to know where their food comes from. I want to know what all of these things that we have around us come from? What is the expertise that goes into it? What is the design and engineering? Who are the people in the factories, working on stuff? From footballs that are made in like a local American factory to a glass factory in another country to, it's just all extremely interesting to watch, balloons get blown up and tested, and crayons. I really think that the factory video stuff too comes from, the old Sesame Street shorts that would be the interstitials that would be in there, or Mr. Rogers.
Like
you go.
He used to take you, and it was so long ago. He would take you. Let's go for a little field trip. I remember
We go to the crayon factory or something. Yeah, absolutely. Or we'd go recycle paper, and they'd find a steel drum, or like a metal barrel by the side of the river, and go make a steel drum. All of those kinds of things, I think that are just naturally fun and interesting, and curiosity.
Things into story.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
They turn our stuff life.
Yeah. They illuminate everything.
They illuminate, and they connect you, as you said, to where they come from, as well as what they're made of, whose it was, and who's making them.
Yeah.
And how are they transported to you? And there's just, our brains are storytelling brains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having the story is just automatically energy light up. And then when you see a crayon, the story comes to mind, because you know where it comes from. And that's so much richer. Life is so much richer.
Yeah, it's 3-dimensional instead of 2-dimensional. So it's more than, a video. It actually connects to the things around us and the experiences that we might be having. And then when you have that foundation with kids of, elementary age, when they are still, sponges and want to have all these conversations with you, then you can talk about, well, what about our refuse? What about our, things that we can reuse or repair, or, that can be used in some brand new way, conservation, or the cycle of things. Can we take this apart and recycle the different parts? Did somebody think about that when they put it together? And what are the, how can we deal with all the plastic? All of these challenges that they can be extremely challenging conversations. But kids are already thinking about these things, and
it eases the conversation because someone else has the right language, right? So you can just pick up on the language and talk about what you saw.
Exactly.
Having to be the expert on everything and explain everything, right? Because that doesn't work. We can't do that. We make stuff up and it's useless, or we avoid it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Yeah.
When we can hear the experts talking about stuff, I think my son, when he was about 6, he had said that there weren't really grown-ups, because grown-ups were just the oldest kids. And I don't know if he got that from the fact that I was always sitting next to him and his sister and we were all learning together with a lot of this from topic experts and different videos. But I really loved that. And, it did make conversations about different things a lot easier, because I can say, oh, I didn't know about that. Let's go look it up. Let's go find out. And then, oh, I want to know more about that. Let's go to the library and find some books on that topic.
There's 2 things you just said that are so important. One is that we can push ourselves away from being expected to be the expert and to know everything, and to have to figure out how to deal with that disappointment. Like we're not set up that way by saying, oh, this is so cool, I didn't know that, right? Like is the best place to start a relationship. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's coming up for me is that if you're having these conversations at a young age, not just the conversation you choose to have and to teach your child, which is so often, right? Like what these conversations can be if you're not sharing media together. But if you're sharing it from a young age, you can keep sharing it, right? Like screen time is not separate. It's together. It's conversational. It's growth. It's humility. It's just friendship, right? What else? That's just so inspiring to me. What else? Around that?
When you say that, I think so often of when we start these conversations and these habits of coming together and really thinking about things, spending time on them, that creates a habit, hopefully, that when they are teenagers, and I've been lucky that this has been true for us, they're used to having these conversations and still come to me when they come home and they learned about something. I still hear about it. And, they're in high school and,
I just have to stop you because I do this all the time to people. When they say they were lucky at something, and if you step back and witness it, like I just did witnessing you, it was there was just not luck. Like that was the whole point, right? There was so much intentionality.
There was intentionality. It was there, my little test subjects, I suppose, proof of concept. We're all doing that as when we're parenting, but it was also luck. I had the privilege of having the extra time to do that. I'd had the, education and design and constructing narrative and, a lot of writing experience. And that came from where I started. There was some luck involved, but I was able to take that and push it into something kind of that helped express my values. And I think something that is a service that people, would like to have that maybe don't have the privilege of time or, don't want to deal with, 4 billion videos on YouTube. Yes.
And they need the trusted source. So let me ask you this. If I assume that when you started doing this with your kids, their friends came over and their friends' parents were over because they were little and there was a community developed around this experience. So over, almost 15 years of doing this, do you have some insights you can share about what a community that has experienced this kind of growth together, family, caregiver, educational growth together with sharing this kind of media together, how it's different from other communities that you see? Like what can we learn from what you've learned, not just in being a mother in that relationship, but a larger, like mother tree, a larger mother to communities that have really embraced this experience that you're offering?
Well, so I think that for one, certainly in my community, we didn't sit down and like watch all these videos and spend the site, but there were links passed here and there. And I think that can be really useful. I think word of mouth of like, oh, I just saw this, you should check this out. This is really great, is useful. I think that, when teachers are able to do that or communities of caregivers are able to do that, that's really important.
Or even from the kids, right? Like if a kid cooks their own food, they're much more likely to eat it and find joy in it.
Absolutely.
If they're the ones who recommend the video to their friend, there's got to be a completely different energy.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
The other kid watching it.
Yeah, I think when I think about the mother tree, and I think that we have so many mother trees, people that are holding it down and are doing it without a lot of fanfare. And I kind of see myself as the mycelium, I'm like connecting the roots of one place and giving it to the other. A huge part of what I love doing about this as somebody who has, produced videos and values communication and education, these museums and universities who are conducting research or, indie artists, local PBS stations who make little segments about local things going on in their communities. They so often you'll look at their YouTube channel and maybe a video, which is so brilliantly produced, so many resources, experts in their field, and they don't have many views. And so my hope is that, by amplifying, their information, that, it will travel through from them to other places that need that information. And so
the mother trees and you're the mycelium.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are the gift that is totally buried and unnoticed and invisible, right? But is there making things happen. So
yeah. And I think that there are a lot of places that are trying to do that. I think, the state of, education and information, media literacy, critical thinking, all of these things. I think that there are a lot of groups across the country and around the world who are focused on strengthening these skills in our young people, in our communities. And I'm inspired by that and learn from that and try to fold that into the kids should see this in what I do.
I love it. It just occurred to me, there's something that you said that reminded me of this, that there's such angst about communication these days. Everybody's afraid to bring up any topic and to expose their kids to it. Like, it's just such a hard time to be in conversation. And there are some topics I just happened to notice, and I'll offer it up, that you had a sort of a little marketing thing for Black History Month, right? And there was a set of, which I assume that you do with a whole lot of different holidays and things that are
absolutely
of the month or whatever. What have you run into? Like, how does your fan mail and your not fan mail, like, what's the interaction that you have with people that don't know you and don't know that you're the mycelium and don't really necessarily feel both positive and negative? So I'll throw it out to you.
Again, I'll say that I'm extremely lucky. My corner of the internet has not exposed me to a lot of issues around that. I know that there have been a few times where videos have fallen into a, subreddit, and people have misunderstood the information or tried to use it to support an argument that is not in line with what the video is actually saying. And, it's a living collection. So, the TKSST is never the maker of the videos, but the amplifier, and I write a short summary or introduction to what the information is to help translate it or make it a little easier, kind of increase that vocabulary. And so sometimes I will go back in if scientific information has been updated or if there's misunderstanding around something. So there was definitely one video that was talking about how redwoods need fire to get their seeds going. And people were misunderstanding around, climate being a challenge to these fires. And they didn't understand that these fires are burning longer and hotter and are harder for these trees to recover. And so, I went back in and I re-emphasized the points of the video.
It's good. It's wonderful. You have this ongoing, as you said, it's a living library, a living experience, so that you can go in and help the dynamic if there's a hot topic.
Yeah, or correct information, update information. Science is constantly learning new things, so that's often necessary.
So on the note of climate and nature and all that, and I do buy into, like, factory tours. So much of it should have something to do with some natural ingredient. I hope most factory tours involved, I would guess that the ones that they film have more to do with natural ingredients than artificial ingredients. That's maybe a naive guess, but where does nature pop up for you in this?
I grew up as an only child, hanging out in the backyard, digging in the dirt and playing with the hose, and gardening and going on hikes in our local mountains in Los Angeles. And so I always felt extremely connected to nature. And even now, I step outside and have a native yard in front and back, and am a California naturalist, certified as a couple of years ago.
Just very quickly about what's a California naturalist certification?
So I went through a class and we went on a couple local field trips, which were really amazing. A class that explains the ecosystems of California all across the state. Our geology, our plants, our animals, how all of it integrates together to make what was for thousands of years a very sustainable life, and who the people were who were helping to cultivate and maintain that in thoughtful ways. And so, yeah, that certification kind of just says that I have studied these things and
I got to figure
now I really enjoy them
near me, because that's such a beautiful construct to be in conversation about how things fit together. And it's interesting because, if you think about your videos, each one is about something different, but I'm sure some pull the ecosystem construct together.
Yeah. So many.
So siloed, right? Or we're so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I think that a huge part of nature on the site and the videos that talk about all the different facets of nature, they are really trying to reconnect generations of kids that have not been away from the screen, who didn't just wander around and dig in the dirt with a stick. And then also a lot of kids just don't have that privilege of having the open space of nature. And so, when I've given tours at our local nature preserve, I've volunteered to, lead classes through our little preserve. It's, incredible because it's, maybe the first time that they're seeing native plants to a city that they've lived in all of their lives, and to smell them and see how they grow. And, we're really kind of disconnected from that. And then, there's layers upon layers of that, of how ecosystems work and how, the animals that all kids really love and want to learn more about, how that's connected with where they live, and how humans interact with them, and how we can start to protect, kids that don't get, generally it's thought that kids that don't get outside that much, they are not able to really connect with that. And so the more you're able to get the kids into the spaces or thinking about these spaces, the more they're going to want to protect these spaces. And that's so important.
Resilience Gone Wild methodology. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as curators, because we're both curators to a certain extent, we get to choose what information we share. Right? So how do you work with that? Like, do you have this specific interest of getting kids outside? Like, because you mentioned this early on, that you were hoping that, people went out and kids went out and explored after they watched the video together with whoever they watched it with, hopefully. When you curate, and we can sort of keep it in the nature-ish space, it's such a big category. Do you wake up in the morning going, oh my gosh, I really want kids to know about something, and you go seek it out? Or how do you make the choices? You only have so much time. And
true. There's a lot of rabbit holes that you can fall down. A lot of the early stuff comes from my own interests and the questions that my kids asked, or things that would come up in our days, from our local science museum trips that we always did, or our local parks. A national park trip.
Actually saying the kids should see this. Like,
yeah,
you see something, you're like, Mom, the kids should see this.
They co-curated with me for many years when they were little, and would, even tell me about stuff from school that they thought I should look at. Yeah. And then, now I think that it's so important, now that I have, strong footing in the landscape of different creators, organizations that are dedicated to conservation, and science communicators, and all of these different places who are doing really incredible work to keep our environment as healthy as we can under the circumstances. They make videos to communicate about the work that they're doing, to tell those stories. And so it's a lot of what do I think are the best ones that have kind of told that story really effectively, or something that, maybe kids can connect with their own lives about, or, something that, that maybe gets misinformation or disinformation about, that, I hope to amplify the clarification around it. And I think that, that's all really an important service. So I'm trying to do that a lot. Also, there's facets of nature that do not get the algorithmic push that we would, think that would be important. For example, so many clean energy solutions, natural climate solutions of how, our climate, our ecosystems have been balancing things for, forever. Yeah, exactly. And, or biomimicry is one of my favorite topics. What can we learn from what nature is already doing? There was this really amazing, series called Think Like a Tree that Wired did many years ago. And there was a bunch of short videos, I think mostly animated, that were explaining, how the trees down in Louisiana that had deep roots and did the most bending would survive the hurricane, and what could we learn from that? Or
I heard about that too. That's so cool.
Yeah. Or shark skin has a really specific texture that that bacteria doesn't attach to, or germs, and so there's like, how can we apply that texture to handles in hospitals? There was another one that there's this great podcast called 99% Invisible that Roman Mars records out of Oakland, California. And he collaborated with, I think it was Vox many years ago, on this great video about how, I think it was penguins, different birds, and different places had informed how Japan's Shinkansen, the bullet train, was redesigned so that the front nose worked with physics instead of against it. And so, all that stuff is so interesting. We can start seeing the stuff around us in more dimensions, and maybe we're thinking more, a little more unhinged, to take the hinges apart and make different connections that we're not usually seeing, to think creatively.
Or unhinge and start seeing different connections. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's, there's so much possibility out there. One last thing that I think is really important that I want to say is modeling failure. In these, in science, fail is just more information, and I think so many kids, there's a lot of anxiety in our communities now, and kids take on a lot of anxiety, partially because of a lot of exposure to stuff, probably through screen time. But I think that can, their interest in video can be used to watch things together that can help them. For example, mindfulness, videos that are available. I try to do that stuff that's, talking about, what was I talking?
How to, calming yourself.
Calming yourself, so but also, the fails.
Yeah.
Also, when somebody fails, seeing that resilience, of them getting back up and figuring. Tell me.
Of this entire podcast was about sea turtles, and that you can't actually make a mistake and fail because it's a learning experience. And sea turtles come up on the beach and they what's called false crawl because they're checking it out. And it's a lot of work to drag yourself out of the water when you're a sea turtle, and to be not buoyant, and to drag your heavy body up the sand, and then decide, I don't really think this is for whatever reason, whether there's some sign of predators or the sand's not quite the right texture or the wind's not going right, whatever it is, that the future of my babies won't be best served this way. And to drag yourself back into the ocean and try again is a monumental, exhausting experience. And the message of this first episode was, you can't make a mistake. You tried, you did the best you could in that moment, and you learned from it. And that message is, I feel like there's got to be more ways to get that out, because yes, that is a major piece of anxiety of
absolutely
adults of
yeah.
today.
And I think especially girls, trying to toe that line, not fail, not say the wrong thing, try to have the right answer all the time. I think, boys and girls have that challenge of trying to be right all the time, instead of, that empowering thing to say, I don't know, or let's find out. And, oh, yeah, that didn't work. Let's try again. That I think that a lot of the videos model that through just watching somebody's work, their field trip to their office, essentially, which might be, in a lab or in a studio or out in the ocean somewhere. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. And just thinking about like what you would think you would make a film about or you would make a video about, and the appearance, the highlight reel, like on social media, that everything has to go perfectly, right? But the message is so wrong if you only show the perfect trip to the office or the perfect whatever skateboard. You have to keep falling and hitting the bumps, or else people think that they're failures. So in making video because there's so many people out there making media, right? Making video, making whatever in whatever form. This is such an important lesson that, like, as a trusted, serious expert in curating what people need to see, what they should see, kids and families and adults, what kids should see, need to see real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of the way things work together and the systems and the unhinging.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that that's useful for educators too. I mean, there's a lot of media made for education that maybe feels a little more stiff or, doesn't have that dynamic energy of somebody in the field or somebody who's like super passionate about it. And so when you open up your resources to the good parts of YouTube, which are hard to find, which is why the site exists,
right.
Then you can engage with kids, in new ways, because suddenly there's a lot of energy and interest and passion and curiosity just kind of naturally built into it. So educators can use them as brain breaks, or maybe it introduces a unit about something and kind of makes that textbook come alive in some different way.
Yeah,
that's the hope.
Yeah, I have to say, like, the bar has gotten very high. I mean, from somebody like me who wants to create video around my content, I could not in any way, shape, or form ever, do that myself. I don't have any of the skills to make that happen. And there's a lot of people out there who can. I realize that, but the bar is pretty high for entertainment value, and that's true of just. For example, teachers in the classroom are judged on their entertainment value. That because there's such a new high expectation of not having the boring, geeky explanation of how something works, right? Like the old videos that were.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that just for a moment?
I mean, I think we all want to be entertained. And I think that, stories by the campfire have been entertaining over the many generation upon generation that we've told them. I think that there are ways that someplace like the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, who I worked with on branding many, many years ago, that they have a wonderful biointeractive group there that was making videos, and they were definitely kind of an old school scientific models, very, very straightforward content. That was dry. And now they make really incredible stuff. They've changed it completely and have this really amazing studio called Tangled Bank Studios that makes nature documentaries. They're communicating the same stuff, but they have, practiced and found, and failed a lot and found what works to communicate this really incredible science and get it through in ways that are more engaging, and it's just more effective. I remember, NASA videos used to be very dry 15 years ago when things were starting out. And I wish I could remember his name now, but I can send it to you later. There was a video editor who took a bunch of content, I think it was partially from NASA and from other places, and cut together this really dramatic, beautiful storytelling I guess, package, this short video explaining the vision of NASA, the power, the heart of exploration. And from then on, I remember it going viral, and I know that it definitely reached, NASA, JPL, Goddard. And I really think that it changed kind of how their storytelling came about. And so, yeah, there's a lot of entertainment, and a lot of it is empty out there, in the 4 billion videos that YouTube has. And so, being able to team up and communicate the important stuff, is, you gotta have a way of understanding how to communicate it. And I think a lot of people are doing that, like, so much younger and so much more quickly than they were a decade ago. And it's really incredible. I mean, I'm a fan of everyone that I'm trying to promote and amplify.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll be in your fan list or whatever. I'm a fan. I'll be the source of fans video at some point. I'll have to get you some great resource recommendations from you. So first of all, I just want to say, I know that you won a Webby Award for this amazing experience that you're curating. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, it was actually, it was right when the pandemic started. It was in 2020. So it was very surreal. But I am proud that, it was a personal project Webby Award, and it won, 2. It was the main award and then the audience choice. I can't remember the exact wording on that, but yeah, it was really wonderful. It validates that this, it's really, the value of it is in the collection. The fact that they're all together, that you're searching through a smaller, a slice of YouTube that is, in my opinion, has more valuable information. You don't have to fight through unboxing videos and, problematic YouTubers and, all the things that we try to avoid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was proud of that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So what's ahead for you? Tell us, what's next. I mean, I know you have a whole gift, connected, which is such an additional beautiful offering to curate that
the gift guide
that you don't have to go to Amazon. Yeah, the gift guide.
Yeah. Well, that tends to be holiday based, but I do keep it up all year round. It's primarily books that I love, usually nonfiction, science or art or history based books, things that you'd see a video of on the site. Different topics like that. Also toys, and puzzles and games that I think are fun for the entire family, or that are primarily not plastic, that can be passed on once your child's grown out of it. It's like something rugged that you can just say, oh, my little cousin needs it now, so we're going to pass it along. Stuff that I just think is valuable and fun, and maybe you learn a different level of information on it while you're in it. And then
joint experience that's
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of it. Like, it's a video site, but stepping away from it, it's like, how does that information, how does that feeling reflect in your life? Like, do you see the connections? We'd have, when my kids were little, we'd be out somewhere and they'd connect. Oh, that thing is like what we saw in that video a couple weeks ago. That was always like, oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. I didn't notice that. That's super cool. And the next, I think that there's a lot of technical back end development stuff I want to do with the site to make it more robust and useful. But
Which is no small feat. Like,
no,
just like it's like as in your role as heading this whole thing, like it's that mycelium, right? Like,
yeah,
the keeping the back of the house going.
Yeah, it's a lot,
right, Kai? Like, my producers, the back of the house for me, I mean, there's so much that goes on that is such an enormous time and all different resource investment that is just nonstop, especially with all of the new technology that makes it, only makes it easier if you actually spend the time and the money building it into.
Yeah. And luckily I have, like, being a designer for so many years, I have a lot of technical background and experience, but there's a lot that's beyond, and so, I have been a one-person shop for most of the time. Now I have a backup of kind of co-workers, here and there, depending on what the, aspect is, whether it's, outreach or, development or, monetization, which, everything's free on the site, but I really kind of align, because I have public media values kind of aligned with the content of the site. I'm going in that direction with supporting the site.
Yeah,
and
going, by the way, so you've set up a subscription process.
Yeah, so
completely voluntary, right?
Yes,
you do
absolutely.
Something so how's it going as a business model, and what can you
Well, so the site was pretty has always been free, always will be free, and there's nothing that's no content that's paywalled or anything like that. But during the right before the pandemic, I was looking for ways for the site to support itself with more. And I really kind of made this my full-time job. And so I went with a membership model, very much of, supporting in the same way that you would a public media. It's helping support the amount of time that I put in, the amount of, server costs and all of that. And, hopefully helping me also reach out to more communities of educators and librarians and parents. And also I've in the past worked with museum, video producers at museums, to get their information out there. And I'd love to do more outreach on that side of things too.
Yeah. Great partnership opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So 2 last questions, because you've been so generous with your thoughts.
You're very kind.
One is, what do you got for us for Mother's Day? And 2 is, what else you got going on that you want to share, and last words of wisdom? And
well, for Mother's Day, we've got a whole bunch of videos about mothers and mothering that I think are fun. And that's everything from, a mother raccoon pushing her raccoon cub up a tree, to beautiful, animations from animation students that talk about, relationships with mothers. Or I remember there's one that's great. I can't remember what country it's from. I love finding animated shorts from foreign countries. One of the most actually influential things from when I was a kid was going to an animation festival and seeing a bunch of shorts. And as a kid, it wasn't a kids festival. And so I just saw like all that they had to present. And so I really try to make TKSST a little bit of that film festival feeling too. And so there's one of a little kid talking about their mother as an airplane, and like just basically emphasizing how amazing she is and all the things that she does. And so I've got a lot of videos like that, about mothers.
We were talking about how
I love metaphor,
right?
Absolutely.
There's so much that you're offering that actually really is metaphor.
Yeah. And advice. Oh gosh. I can only say what worked for me, but, I have found that, and I found this in both positive ways and challenging ways, that, the habits that we set up with our kids, that's what they get used to. So, when they were little, we didn't really have much screen time, and it was always together. And they were used to it, and they were pretty fine with it. We would, it was what they expected and were used to. And, when the gates opened, it changed it. It's what
time to raise kids these days.
Yeah. And I mean, especially around the pandemic, because I think we all gravitated to the screens either because of necessity, mostly because of necessity between schools and work and all of that. And when those gates open, it's hard because then that's what they're used to. So I would say just, whenever we can, try to make it a communal thing. Try to make it an opportunity for discussion. Try to have your ear to what they're doing on their own and get involved if it's something that can interest you. Play video games with your kids and make it play. Adults are the oldest kids. So, let it be something that you're doing together. I think a lot of parents do that already. I think a lot of parents want to do that and maybe don't have as many opportunities given whatever circumstances,
And I think that there's an awareness and appreciation for that message that parenting doesn't just come natural. Like, it comes naturally, but it doesn't. Like, as a new parent, as a parent of young children or whoever, like, there's no rule book. There's no this is how you should, everything you should say today and everything you should do today. Like, we got to figure it out as we go along. So, the advice is really beautifully welcome. Spend more time with your kids, sharing their experiences, and then
learning with them.
Yeah.
Learning together. It's super fun too.
Yeah. And have fun. Like, we are not grown-ups, we are all big kids, and there's nothing wrong with being childish, and there's nothing childish about being a kid. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm looking forward to being one of your, you're curating me. So
thank you so much. And thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate it.
Keep in touch.
This has been a production of BLI Studios, produced by me, Kai. Follow along with our other BLI produced shows at balancinglifesissues.com/podcast-BLI. Got an idea for the show? Email me, Kai, at balancinglifesissues.com. And don't forget to stay in touch with your host, Jessica, at jessica@winwinwinmindset.com. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.